Everyone, welcome back. This is You Just Freestyled, the show where we talk about stuff involving creation.
Mhm.
That's really vague, but it's okay. You'll figure it out later. Today, I'm with Jasmine. So I know you just talked about false starts and stuff. So let's do like three of those and just get them out of the way.
Cool.
All right, cool. So, actor, writer.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna start with a really basic question. What did get you into acting?
Actually, weirdly enough, it was speech and debate. I joined that in high school because I was just always interested in, debating, conversating, generating ideas, whatever. So I had joined that, and a lot of people don't know that there's speech and there's debate. So they're introducing us to a different events, and I was like, oh, there's speech where I can give speeches and I can do acting events. Cool. Um, so when I took the class, we had to like do every event pretty much, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. So I was doing the acting, and then I ended up joining theater, and I was like, oh, cool, I'm an actor.
Right.
So yeah.
No, repetition, literally. So, can you actually explain to me the difference between speech? Because I did
Yeah.
debate in high school and college and really enjoyed
Oh,
it
cool,
actually,
yeah.
but I didn't know about speech. Actually.
Yeah, some debate teams are just debate, but speech is like um, original oratory is an event where you write a 10-minute speech on an idea. Like you have to give it, say why it's a problem, offer a solution, whatever. For instance, it could literally be like, oh, pollution. There's the problem. Here's the solution. Here's the problem. Here's why it's a problem. Here's the solution. Whatever. So 10-minute speech. There's impromptu where you're given a topic. You have like 3 minutes to write a speech, and then you give a 7-minute speech. And I did interpretation, so interpretation. I did dual interpretation, so it's me and another person. You take a book, you cut it down to like 10 minutes, and you perform it. So we did My Sister's Keeper. Do you know that?
No, but I'll definitely look it up.
Yeah, it was a book. It was like 500 pages. My God, the thing was so hard to cut down.
Yeah.
But they made it a movie. But yeah, so we did. It has Cameron Diaz in the movie. I didn't really watch it because I read the book, so I was one of those people. I was like, the movie's not as good as the book.
Yeah, I'm often that person.
Especially since I worked so much with the book, I was like, I don't like the tape. But yeah. So we cut it down to 10 minutes, and we like acted it. So we had to like split up the characters, and you're not allowed to have props or like dress up or anything. So you have to like perform it in the 10 minutes, like however you cut it down. And then I also did dramatic and humorous interpretation. It's the same thing, you're just by yourself, and one's dramatic and one's comedic. So when I did dramatic, I did The Giver, and when I did humorous, I did Peter Pan, and I did Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you feel like speech? Because you were saying like you find a problem and then you add like the solution to the problem, like pollution, and then
Oh
finding.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that's kind of similar to acting, where you're given a character and you're more so finding your what's the exact word I'm looking for? Not your meaning, your why, like why this character does things or why this character has those moments. Do you feel like that kind of preps you for it because you ended up then doing that?
I think that's interesting. Yeah, I think it definitely preps you at least for being clear and being intentional.
Right.
Because it's so easy to say like, oh, this is a problem, but like, why? Like you have to be clear, and I think acting is very much in that way. Like you have to be intentional with what you're doing.
Right.
So yeah, I think there is definitely like a connection with that.
Right. When you said impromptu, it made me think of improv, and you also do improv, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting that there's a improv in speech and debate because I didn't know about that either. Like I always assumed that everything was like immediately rehearsed. Like not like you had 3 minutes to then give a 7 minute like.
Yeah, impromptu is really hard because there's also another event called extemporaneous debate. Yeah, my friend from high school did speech and debate in college, and that was their main event.
Right.
And that is like impromptu, but it's more debate heavy. So they give you a topic, and you have 30 minutes to research it, and then you have to give a speech about that topic. It'll be like, oh, why the Kenyan president is bad for the economy, and you have to give a whole speech. You get just 30 minutes to look it up. I'm like, I couldn't do that. And also, I had a hard time doing impromptu, but it is, I think, it is a very important skill.
Right.
It is really, it can open your mind to how to like bring a conversation somewhere, because a lot of times they are like topics. So for instance, it'll be like a theme like Disney princesses. Right. So you pick like Cinderella, Snow White, and Sleeping Beauty, and you have to pick one of the three, and then the one you pick, you have to do a speech on. So if you say, oh, Sleeping Beauty, and then you make your speech about like, oh, we all know the story of Sleeping Beauty where her parents took her somewhere else trying to prevent her from danger, but that shows you that you can't be, when they could have armed her with knowledge, it shows you can't be unprepared, you have to have knowledge going forward, you know, and
Right.
you make it about something like bigger.
Right.
So, where improv is hard, but in a different way.
Like how? Because so I had like some basic improv classes at this apprenticeship I did at Aurora
Mm-hmm.
Theater, but I haven't done too much improv, and I always like when I'm by myself, I find like it's easier for me to do improv, but I find like when
Mm-hmm.
you're building a world with people, it's more intensive because you're like
But we're doing improv.
right, exactly, which is also like yes, the point of the podcast. Yes, like that's like so that's like what I always like to say. Like when you have a conversation with somebody, like that is improv. Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't come in like even if I had questions I wanted to ask or I had like a script in my mind or I was like, yo, I want to definitely talk about these things. Like
Mm-hmm.
our interactions are just improv. Like we're just literally yes anding or feeding off of like what it is that we're
Yeah.
doing. So I guess yeah, I don't find it as intensive as I thought. But on stage, maybe it's like the addition of audiences or me like being in my head about it that
Yeah.
makes it feel like it's more than what it is. You know what I mean?
Probably. I think a lot of it is people try too hard to make it something it doesn't have to be. Like a lot of times
Mm.
people try to make it really funny or really deep, and it's just about story building. It's just about creating a world. And my acting teacher used to always say the audience doesn't exist. Like if the audience was there or not, you're gonna put on the same show. So it really doesn't and also shouldn't matter because the art is for you. The art is for the sake of the art. It's not really for the audience. So I guess that has helped me as an actor, but it helps me in the sense of like it helps me feel comfortable on stage because I'm like I don't care who's watching me because I'm doing the art for the sake of the art.
Right, right. In that, do you feel like there are characters that like you've had to grow into or like grow to embody or become?
Yeah, I think I don't know. It's they all provide their own set of challenges because I know a lot of times people are like I could do this role that's easy, but at the end of the day, they're people that make decisions that I don't necessarily relate to. So I have to find a justification. And I think the hardest role for me was when I was in this play called Flying West. It's about it takes place in 1898. It's about three sisters post slavery, and they're building a home in Nicodemus, Kansas. And I was Sophie, the older sister, which was hard. It was hard for me because she was someone I actually really admired. Like I agreed with everything this bitch did, but it was it was a world I didn't relate to.
Mm.
So I had to figure out how to be this like strong and like powerhouse of a person in the context of the world I was in, and also like she was older. She's like 38, and at the time I was like 22. So I
Wow.
was like, it's also a different life experience, like in another way that I don't understand. But the base of it, it's why is she doing what she's doing, and like how her choices impact her. And a lot of her choices, I mean, a lot of like things that happened in her life were also things that I didn't relate to or things I couldn't understand. Like she was born into not her, she wasn't born into slavery. Her parents were slaves, or well, her mom was. You know, she had to go travel the country because of hate crimes. You know, well, okay, I was hate crime as a kid, but anyway, that's a different thing. We didn't move because of that. But anyway,
Yeah. No, fair though. Fair.
yeah. But I mean, but that goes into the thing. It's like you can always draw something. You can always relate somehow, even though it's like, wow, this is like so. This is a world I don't know. But there is always something you can connect to. And I think at the base of it, if it's like, okay, I see the humanity in her, and that's what I can connect to, it makes it a lot easier. And I still think that was like the hardest role I ever did. Everyone's always like, "That's the best acting I've ever seen." And I was like, "I don't know how." Shit, that was tough. Right. That was hard as fuck.
No. Finding like the humanity in it, I think is like finding the humanity and finding like the links in things. I think is like probably the way that I find it the easiest to relate to something that I've never had really any experience with. Funny enough, like I'm looking at like a lot of your posters, and a lot of times now I've been like watching stuff, no subtitles, like even if it's not Japanese, like just no subtitles whatsoever. And then it's what I'm looking for are the moments that humans just seem to share in general. Like someone tells a joke, like a moment of like intense sadness, or
Mm-hmm.
like some feeling that you don't need words for. Like you don't need words to realize that this is what's happening, and then going back with context or with understanding of the person, or by finding more in that bit of humanity that you did find, you get more context. You're able to better understand what it is. You're like, oh, that's exactly what was happening, rather than I just understood this one moment of feeling. It's
Mm-hmm.
interesting because I feel like there's a lot of things that like you don't need words for, but the more that you just interact with it, it'll become clearer to you.
Yeah.
Uh,
That makes me think of Denzel Washington. I know he's a legendary actor. I know now.
yeah.
But I had never seen his action movies, which I didn't realize until John introduced me. He's like, we're watching a lot of his action movies, and we watched Safe House, and I'm like, this man is incredible.
Yes.
This man is incredible because I'm thinking specifically of the scene where if they're in the store and he's talking to him and he goes, "Oh, have you been married?" And there's like a look in his eye and he goes, "Once." But you can tell there's more there because he made there more there. You know, he added life to this woman. He gave this woman a name. He gave themselves a life. There was life there. It's not just what you say, but it's everything behind that. And I'm like, wow, I've been sleeping on this man.
Yo.
I've been sleeping on one of the greatest actors of all time.
Fair. But that's like the I think that's the thing about art, and like doing something for the art, you run into people who you're meant to see, or like you should be like interacting with, or like you'll draw something from. Because I say all the time, like there's so much art out there that it's like, how would you, even if you had all the time to like listen or read or see everything, like you would probably still gravitate back towards the thing that spoke to you the most.
Yeah.
Is what I feel like. I don't know if that's like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think art is quantifiable. I think most things are, but I no, I understand what you're saying. It's just like it's like this weird thing that society's made of, like, oh, creatives and non-creatives. It's like everyone is a creative in their own sense. In the same sense that like there's no one subject that I'm like, oh, this is all I ever do in my life. Like I do math every day. I read every day. You know, I do other aspects of everything else. So it's weird to think like, oh, other people also aren't creative.
Right.
Because everybody needs that in some extent. To some extent, it's just how much everybody needs it. But that didn't answer your question.
That's good.
Yeah, I forgot your question.
No. I think I more so even made a statement because like the uh the question that I was gonna have, which was also based off, and I still haven't found this video clip, so I need to see it so I can like actually verify what that is. But and I could be wrong. My bad if I'm wrong. Like this Denzel Washington clip where he's like receiving some kind of award or something, and he's like, I still take workshops all the time. Like I still actively practice this craft because I want to get better at it. And it's insane to think about that because Denzel Washington is like a legendary actor who could actually stop doing whatever it is that he wants. Like he could be like, I could rest on my laurels kind of idea, but he's continued to build on it. He's continued to make that a part of his day within like doing other things, other aspects of his life, because he's not just an actor, but he's continued to make that a large part of his life. Do you feel like you find acting in other parts of your life, even doing other things, or is it more so like it's something that you can return to and go into and then kind of turn off and on when you want to?
I think of course, acting's not it's not a secure profession. So I think people that go into it are either nuts or it's like this is just who you are as a person. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you can't separate yourself from it. And I think that's true. Like who you are is just how you go through the world. Mm-hmm. Like I know John's a writer. Every time anything happens, he talks about it in like relation to, oh, this beautiful script, oh, this, you know, a story, you know. And I think it's the same way with I think I can see people in a different way. Like I often wonder like why did they say that? Like what made them say that? Why did they choose to do this? You know, I think it's just something that I always question. So I don't think it's separate from me. I don't think I go to acting class and I'm like, oh, let me apply this to life. I think it's in addition to who I've been. It just gives me more precise words on how to do what I've already been doing.
No, that makes sense. We had like a similar John and I in the last conversation. I asked him if you feel like music allows you to talk back to yourself, or like writing in general. Because I often feel like there's things that I'll do in freestyle that just become like ingrained habits. I might return to the same word or like the same flow pattern or something. And in that, even when I don't break away from it, I'll say something to myself that I've been feeling or that I haven't necessarily been able to voice before. But somehow in this moment of like applying it to music or the music applying itself or whatever it actually is, I'm able to reach that thing. And it's like I also feel like that's because I'm constantly like I can't separate myself from music basically. Like I'm always thinking about music. I'm always thinking about like how this relates to that or how like even songs like spirituals and stuff aren't just music. Like they literally have a relation to a point in time that someone embedded into the song, and then you're carrying it through like Wade in the Water. Like it's a great song to sing, but it also has like so many
context and story. Yeah.
right. So it's like no, I feel like art in general for whatever the whole maybe like art imitates life or life imitating art is that you and to your point about everyone being creatives, like I think math is like an art. I think and that's also maybe me just being weird. I really think like everything is an art because it's to the point of like when you get so proficient at it or even when you're not proficient at it, you're literally in the act of creating something or making something that didn't necessarily exist there in the moment or you are causing other people to be able to perceive because you're allowing them to to their like be there. Like even like the posters, I'm like I remember watching all this stuff, but like a lot of this stuff didn't exist at one point. Like even the concept of what we're doing right now, like podcasting, like laptops, all of that was an idea in someone's head that they kept over over imagining maybe to the point where like it was like oh other people can like get what they're saying. That was kind of like a like tangent, but
No, I think you're right. I think art inspires, and a lot of things inspire isn't necessarily like you wouldn't quantify as art. Like I think about like tennis, for instance. Like to me, that is something that's taken like heart and soul for me. And a lot of people, you know, you watch your favorite player and you're like, oh my god, I'm inspired. Like you're making me feel something. You're making me feel, you know. And I think there's definitely all kind of art everywhere. Like you can whatever inspires you, I guess, to do shit.
right,
Like, you know.
right. No, I feel like I was listening to like just music in the car on the way home with Nikki, and I was like almost in tears at like every song for no reason. Like I was just like, oh, that's such a beautiful melody, or that's like such a great story, or like that's so random that you did that. There, like how creative of you. But no, I feel like that really does just like the general like things that seem mundane or like they don't necessarily oh that's not art so it has no place in the art world do feed into the artist because we don't just sit in like a vacuum where it's like even if you are in a position where you're like all I do is create like you literally have to go I have to go do other things I move to other spaces I experience other things in this space and time besides just the art that I'm in and all that feeds into it so I feel like yeah, like you don't have to look at everything as art, but everything feeds into the art that isn't art. And no, I've literally had like Lords of Dogtown. I think I've mentioned that movie like several times now. It's about like how skating gets started in California, and it's just like several people have the same idea at the same time, so they all start skating, and then it becomes the X Games. And I've cried watching that movie, and they're just like someone would be like they're just skating, but I'm like you don't understand. You don't understand. Like there was nothing there. Now it's there. Like no. I really think that and I think that's something that I've had a difficulty in my life too because I'm like, oh, if I'm not writing a song right now, or if I'm not like in a notebook, right, literally, like I have no purpose, I have no worth, and it's like, damn, do you realize that tons of people like look at art and they just don't feel anything? Like they're like, oh, yeah, it's a pretty picture, and I'm like, please stop talking. But no,
it's
no.
like the movie Soul. Your purpose is to feel, experience.
I actually really like that movie. Pixar's been doing that is a Pixar movie, right? Yeah, Pixar's been doing really well in that whole like avenue, and I think it's actually been helpful because no, to your point, like his whole life is like I want to be this big time jazz musician. I want to be like this. Everyone knows my name, and like he gets the opportunity in that moment. Like it's like technically snatched away from him by him like dying in that moment.
Spoilers.
So hey, you clicked on this. You did this to yourself.
If you haven't seen the movie by now, it's your fault. So.
Or maybe it's not, but you clicked on this. Don't worry, I'll put spoilers somewhere here, or I won't, and I'll just let you feel the pain. But it's okay. No, it's like. Oh, I realized that's me too. I actually don't care about spoilers. I like spoilers, so I realize that.
I hate them.
Do you really?
I hate them.
Oh man. So see, okay. I'm gonna come back to the whole tangent I'm on about Soul, but So, like, do you feel like your choices as an actor are based off of you as a person, or you as you've learned acting from other people? If that actually makes
That
sense.
makes sense. So you mean like how I like approach a character?
Approach a character, build a world, like set a
Yeah,
story.
yeah. I mean, I think it all comes from you. I think because especially for theater, the beauty of theater is how different it is every time. Because if it was like, oh, the actor doesn't matter, it's the same story, like
Mm.
I wouldn't see a show again. We wouldn't do a show again. It's
Right.
like, okay, I've already seen the story. But it's the actor that makes it something new. You know, it's the same words, but it's something completely different.
Yeah.
And that it just comes from it. It just comes from you. It comes from the different things you experienced, or like your interpretation of the events. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can. I think acting class mostly teaches you like technique, like how to be the best you, or how to like shape you into something.
Right.
But yeah, it's you in a different form. Like yeah, you have to connect it to you, or else it's nothing.
Right.
You know, it means nothing to me. Like I have to care, so it has to be me in some aspect.
Right. I think that was like what I was wanting to get to with the whole like soul thing, with the whole like just
Oh
feeling. Because like a lot of times, like I'd be like, uh, there was no feeling in what I was doing. So then I feel like it's useless, and then by proxy, I feel like I'm useless. I'm connecting. Thing I'm connecting to myself, I feel like it's useless because I have no feeling towards it, or I can't like find myself connecting to it. But then I was like, what if I could just like feel happy about the fact that I can make music? Like anyone, in my opinion, like anyone can make music, anyone can dance, like anyone can learn how to do something. But it's the aspect of actually feeling what you're doing that takes it to a level of being like what you might perceive as art. Because I still think like art is art. If you make a song and like it's for money and you don't feel anything about it, it's still art to me. I'm gonna find like whatever it is I find in it. It'll probably put me in tears, but like it's like for me, like personally, when to your point, if I can find some kind of connection with it, then I feel much more happy about what I'm doing, even if the song takes like a year, even if the song takes like 45, like it's like I should have been done with this a long time ago, but then I'm like, but it's really fun. Like I was sending some songs to like my friend Chris, shout out Chris Dark Cloud, and I've had those beats for like 2 years, and like sometimes like Chris will be like, you gonna make those songs yet? You gonna work on those songs? I'd be like, bro, I swear I will. Like I just gotta like feel them. And then I've been working on what we were talking about last conversation, like John and I, like actually, okay, how am I feeling today? Like what are my emotions like, or what is it that what's going through my head, or like what do I need to like somehow vocalize, even if it's not going to become part of the song. And then in that I find myself in these spaces where like I'll knock out 3 4 songs, and like they're all what I'm looking for the song. It might not, sometimes it might even be the same subject matter, like to the point about the words being the same, but the feeling that I'm putting in them creates some kind of different world, or it creates something there that wasn't there before. um I like what you said about because the show is different every night. Like I've worked tech in like a few productions, like, and it's like you might do the same show for months at a time, but it's never,
Oh, it's always yeah.
it's never the same show. Like even the things that might come up, or like something doesn't happen on time, or like the cues that like get like swapped around, like all of those things create a different show. And the audience like doesn't necessarily know that it's not the same as it was the night before,
Yeah.
but they're getting that feeling from it. Do you, when you're building community on a show with people, like as like the actual working with the actors, not necessarily building the world, but working with the actors, what do you feel like that experience is like? Do you feel like everybody seems to gel together immediately, or is it kind of like everyone kind of just finds their niche, and then from that niche they come to work and they do the show, and then they build that world, and they kind of just,
Oh, like in their own world.
yeah, if that makes, because I know that was kind of like,
No, I get what you're saying to some extent.
yeah, fair. I'm working on structuring the questions, but
ask it how you want. I'll figure it out in there somewhere.
appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it is a community. At least if it's, how do I word this? At least if it's actors with experience, or actors that kind of know what they're doing a little bit, they are going to build with other characters. Because a lot of people that don't they don't understand it fully. They'll just be like, oh well, what my character does is my business. I don't really need to talk to you. But it's like if we're all in this world, we all need to build our stories together. Especially if you're building a backstory with somebody, it's hard when like um oh, for instance, if I'm like, okay, this line to me is gonna mean like, oh, this thing happened between us 2 years ago, that's gonna be something to me. If I don't communicate that with the other person, that's just a completely different thing. It's not gonna be if I throw something, you're not gonna catch it. So and then it's just gonna mean something different if we're both on the same page of okay, this is an inside joke. Oh, no, it's gonna build something different rather than I'm saying to myself, oh, this is an inside joke, and then you're just looking at me, and then I look fucking dumb,
Right.
So I think it's required. It's like necessary. You need to build with the other actors, especially actors you're in scenes with, or actors like that are supposed to be your siblings or family, or whatever. Like you need to build with them because like you exist with them, and it's hard. You can't just show up and the energy is there. You need to like build that with somebody. You need to establish like a relationship for it to be a relationship.
Right. Do you feel like because most runs of shows in months at a time, like I could be wrong, do you feel like there's often time for that? Like, I mean, also it's also up to the people to actually want to
Mm,
take that time and spend that time to build. But do you feel like there's enough?
I think so. I mean, I think you're around each other enough that you can at least like because there's a lot of like warm ups you do together. It doesn't have to be like we're looking at each other's soul and that's how we're building. It can just be like okay, we're doing an exercise, and I think camaraderie comes quickly, whether it's in a show or like acting classes, like just the way exercises are, just the way you have to be vulnerable with each other in a space. It makes it more likely to build a connection between people, but you have to be open to it. Like you
Mm.
can't be like, oh, whatever. This is about me when it's not about you. It's about the art. It's about the play, and it's not about any individual person. So I think if you're like, okay, this is about the play. What does the play need? Then that's gonna make you be more open and more receptive to um, participating, I guess, with other people.
Right.
Now I think whether or not you're friends is like kind of a different thing because I think you're all friends while you're at the run of the show, but then it's different when the show ends. But um, yeah, I mean when you're in a space together, you just build camaraderie. It's just a natural thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I relate that to like ciphers, like not even just like rap ciphers, but like dance ciphers. Because when you're like the analogy I always like to use at like soul food cipher is a cipher is a circle that never ends and never begins, and like it's 360. Like it doesn't. It's a transferring of energy. So the cipher isn't about who's the best rapper, who's the best dancer, who's whatever kind of cipher you're having. Like there are poetry ciphers where people spit poems in a cipher. It's not about who's the best or who has the most creative metaphors. It's that we all showed up here together to create this world and exist in it. And if there's an audience, cool. But if there's not, like it's us feeding off of each other and like giving each other energy. And if you break the cipher, it doesn't end it, but then it also takes you out of it. Like you're leaving the world to like make it about you. And I think it's like some of the most creative moments I've ever experienced are when I'm with other people and I'm not thinking about, oh, did that bar come off right or did that move come off right. It's like to your point about like getting inspired by other people. You're just in a space of creativity. You're immersed by something that you really care about, and then everyone's just there to like build this world with you. And no one's like,
It's funny you say that, but yet you struggle with improv.
so like I think, and that's for me. Like I think that's for me. Like it's that's the funny thing too. So when I did improv at the apprenticeship, I was doing it was like the story about like what was it? Something like a yarn seller or because one of us was really into knitting. Shout out Issa. Like and it was like going to a store to buy like yarn and thread to like knit with, and I was supposed to be like a seller or looking for a particular type of yarn. So I was just like, of course, spitballing, and the teacher like stops me at the end of it, and they're like, "Yo, you're really in that. Like I believed it. Like I thought you were there. Like how did you do that?" And I thought about it. I was like, "Well, I do a lot of freestyling, like because it's like that's what I think about." And I think sometimes for me, uh, skills will transfer over, but sometimes in my like conscious mind, I'll get in my way and be like, "Oh, like." Just because you can freestyle really well for hours doesn't mean you can do improv for hours, and like that's like the self doubt sometimes, you know what I mean, or like the oh yeah, like I practice, like I'll practice freestyle for like hours at a time. But then I'll think because I'm transferring over to something else that I'm not deeming as freestyle in the same way,
Mm.
like freestyle rap, I'm like, oh, I can't do that for as long. But you're to your point,
That's
yeah,
your Bruno. Remember
yeah,
that? Then
Bruno,
that's from Luca. It's a
yeah,
Pixar movie. It's not inspired. I mean, not funded by Pixar, by the way. But in
but
the
it could
movie,
be.
yeah, in the movie, he's like, "Oh, that man in your head, that's Bruno. Don't listen to Bruno. Say shut up, Bruno." that's your Bruno.
I gotta check out Luca because Bruno. I thought about when you I thought about Encanto,
Oh
and I
yeah,
was
yeah.
like, we don't talk about Bruno, and I was like, oh, but that kind of I guess works the same way. Like, no, so I actually like this idea like a lot. Talking about self doubt. Do you experience self doubt on stage or when you're learning a role, or how do you channel that into the character, or how do you get around that? Not that it necessarily happens to you,
Yeah,
but
no.
just talking about that, I guess.
I don't. I think once I've learned the lines and everything, and I'm comfortable with the character, I don't really doubt my performance.
Right.
I'm like, should I got this? I don't give a fuck. But but I don't know. I don't really get stage fright or anything because I'm like, okay, whatever. But I think I do have self doubt when it comes to auditioning a lot
Mm-hmm.
because call me cocky or whatever. But once I'm there, I'm like, look, I know I have it. Whatever. I'm the greatest. But when it comes to auditioning, I'm like, um, is this something I can do? Or like, am I doing the right thing? Like, because I don't know how I'm being perceived, and I also don't. I just get really in my head sometimes when it comes to auditioning because I'm just like, oh, this is text I'm unfamiliar with. This is a story I'm unfamiliar with. Um, I don't know. There's just a little bit of uncertainty because I'm like, I don't know what you're expecting from me. I don't know what you want from the character. I don't know like the character, you know.
Right.
So I'm myself not comfortable in this role. So yeah, I don't know. I get anxious with auditions and I get really upset after auditions. I'm like, that just wasn't what it could have been. But yeah, I don't know.
Do you like tend to voice record or film like yourself even practicing and then watch them back to kind of like gauge what it was that you did do, or do you just like you just already know that you're practicing, so you just kind of go forward with like the record already kind of in your mind, sort of thing?
Well, for theater stuff, I don't. I mean, I'll like film self tapes because they have to be filmed.
Yeah.
But I don't really like watching them. I think it's about how it feels. Like because you know when you do a good take and you're like, that was good. Like you can feel when something's good. So I think it's like, and I think theater is mostly about how it feels, like how it feels to be on stage and how it feels watching it. So it's about. So I don't think recording it, I'm gonna really know that. Plus, when I watch them, I'm like, oh, I don't like. But that takes away from it. You know, I'm thinking so much about my arm moving like this that I'm getting out of the space or getting out of the mindset, and it's just about like connecting with somebody. And I think that just goes back to knowing the character, being confident in what you're doing, so that you're able to build up on it instead of focusing on like, oh, did I say that line the way it should have said the line? Did I see? Because that's not what it's about. It's about like the energy, how it feels. So yeah, I don't like to record it because I don't think that is helpful.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel like for me, recording got in the way for a little bit because I felt like I had to record like every time that like I did a freestyle or did a take, I had to have like a record of it. So it's like, oh, and a lot of it was because I very much was in the mindset that I'm going to commodify it in some way, shape, or form. So I'm like, oh, I have to like have a record of it so I can make money off of it later. And if I don't make money off of it, I'm not a good business person, even if I'm a great artist. And then I realized that was taking away from me just being able to do the art because then it becomes more so about like how marketable is this take versus how much fun am I having? How much like am I actually enjoying?
Should I say this? Should I do this?
Literally. And I was just having that conversation today where like somebody was commenting on one of the excerpts. I just started putting I only put up one from the original conversation that John and I did. And they were like, yeah, I still wish that we had that 25-minute back and forth that we did and we were quoting stuff from it. But I like the idea of us having done it and then not having it like just it being an experience with us, it just being a moment in
Mm-hmm.
time that like we had, which I often feel like that's what a show is. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you go to see a show, like in really any type of show, like you're getting that experience in the moment, and you can record it, you can have some kind of take from it that you can show other people, but the
Mm-hmm.
actual moment that you're there spending that time is like that's unique to that moment. That's
Yeah.
unique to that time. And even watching the video back over and over, you can get a feeling for it, but you're not there.
Yeah, you can't capture it fully, yeah.
Right.
For sure.
In that, like, and I think I probably already know that, but like I probably already know the answer to this question. But seeing as like art is, I think the word I'm looking for is transitory, in a way that the experiences are unique to that moment in that space. When you go into a performance, you've already said that you think like every show is already different.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think with the audience not existing, like what when you're building that world with people, is it a different world that you're building every night in the same show or every day, or is it like the same place and you're visiting different aspects of it?
Yeah, it's the same place, but you're visiting different aspects. Like, think about someone you know very well,
Yeah.
and you say something to them, and you know what they're gonna say, or you know, oh, they're gonna say this or this. So it's the same sense, it's the same person, it's the same thing you're saying to the person, but it just depends on what they're feeling in that moment. If they're gonna say this or if they're gonna say this. Um, and I think that's what makes a show different every night. Is like, okay, like I'm saying, oh, drink your tea. This time I'm saying it like you come to my house, oh, drink your tea. But then the way the scene pans out, like now I'm pissed at you. I go, yeah, drink your tea. Saying like, shut the fuck up, you
Right.
know. So
Right.
it's the same world. It's just like how the energy of what's going on changes my intention behind it, and it might change the meaning behind it.
Right. Did you learn intentionality in the theater, or do you feel like you already were very like you already felt like you were intentional often in your life, and that just kind of also drew you to theater?
I don't think I would say I was very intentional in life. I think I was more so when it came to acting. I don't know. I think I can be intentional about certain things,
Mm-hmm.
but I think I can also be very absent-minded.
Mm.
It's just things. I don't know. I think once I have my mind on something, then that's something that I think about a lot.
Yeah.
But anyway, violent nods over there. But I think in my focusing on one thing, I kind of miss a lot of other things.
Mm.
So I think theater school has definitely helped me with being clear and being intentional with a scene. Um, what was it my teacher would say? He'd say like I don't even remember, but it's pretty much just like you have to every moment is a moment. Like you have to be very clear on what you're doing in every moment. Like you have to, because I know as me as a person, um, I know what I mean when I say stuff. I know why I'm saying stuff. So this is a character I'm trying on for the time being. So it's like you have to be extra clear because I'm not living every day of my life as this person. So it's going to be different um, to understand who they are. So you have to be extra clear as to what they mean. So I think it's definitely helped me with being intentional when it comes to theater. And I think it has helped me be more intentional with what I say. I don't know if theater's done that or my sister that's very intentional, but I have become more intentional in life.
Yeah. No, I feel like that just goes back to people or things around you inspiring you without like realizing what it is. For you, if you like
sure.
your sister also like feeds into that, that makes perfect sense.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
She's a therapist.
really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, see, I'm interested in that field a lot actually because I've been doing like a lot of self therapy, but sometimes it's like kind of like watching like voice recordings or videos. Sometimes I don't want to look, like sometimes I don't. I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that. And then someone points it out to me, and I'm like, oh, maybe that's what that is. Maybe I should look at that. Like
something that I find, I don't know if it's helpful or just interesting to me, is if I need to talk it out with myself, I just like write it down and I don't look at it forever. And then when I do revisit it, I'm like, damn, bitch, what the fuck, you know? But I don't think it's helpful to look at it in the moment because you're still in the moment. I think when you look back later, it can be like, I was feeling like that shit. But I think it is helpful to just let it out and like talk to yourself, I guess.
Yeah. No, I feel like we talk to ourselves all the time anyway. I mean, kind of just like being like your thoughts are just like playing in your head like on the day to like even just like oh yo I need to go do this or like I need to like that's like talking to yourself like it's just I guess
some people don't have an internal thing. That's weird to me.
Some people also don't they don't image they don't visualize like they don't see images and I'm like that's so interesting.
I don't know
because for me that would be like I'd be like how does that work? But then it also just reminds me like everyone is not like me. Like and not for better or worse, like everyone is just not like me.
Or when they imagine images, some people don't see color.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird. It's wild to me.
And then you have like synesthesia, like other things where like people like can like taste sound or like they can like and I'm like how do I get some of that? You know what I mean? Like I'm like
it's like a dog barking.
I feel like that's what it actually because you like I think about like echolocation.
Yeah,
like like humans can echolocate too, right?
Oh I've heard that like blind people do that.
Right, but like you can also learn how to do it even if you're not blind.
I'm sure you can.
Yeah,
that's wild.
But there are people who've done it, and I'm like, so I could learn how to like, oh, it tastes like a dog's barking. Like I could figure that out. I could figure out if Nico was barking. Like that would be wild to me.
Well, yeah, I guess everything in your body's connected, so yeah, your brain could literally just rewire itself and tell you that it's a taste.
Random sidebar. I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad about it. In like. When it comes to acting, do you actively look for skills that you feel like you want to or think you need to improve on? Or do you kind of feel like through acting anyway, you'll just run into characters or moments or worlds that will cause you to build into that those skills or those things that you were going to end up looking for anyway?
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah.
Like when you say skills, what do you mean?
Like I guess like how you were talking about technique, right? Like in terms of like acting, and I tend to relate everything back to music, so my apologies if that's annoying. But I think about like I learned how to read music when I was like younger, right? And then forgot about it. And then when I'd be freestyling, someone would be like I like to sing a lot, and they'd be like, "Oh, that's a suspended seven note you're doing." Like I'm like that's a what? Like I don't know what you're talking about.
Who just says that at a freestyle?
Right. Like but no, like it's like I've heard that from multiple people, like not even just the same group of people. So I was like, there's obviously something about the things that I learned at some point in my life that have built into the skill that I like to call music. And because freestyling and rapping is something I love to do, but I also am just really interested in music. So like I got really interested in that because I wanted to become a better musician. I like the idea of being able to interact with the instrumental to the point where I just felt like you were meshing with it, which is really what anyone does with music anyway in any genre. But like something about rapping just felt like very intimate, like very like I'm in the music, like the music is like literally here with me kind of thing. So when I'm talking about like techniques, like in there's like this huge, and I guess you could call it gatekeeping, but like people would be like, oh, you listen to like rap, but you don't know anything from the 80s, you don't know anything from the 90s. And of course, like there's been rap music like since before then. Even if you go back to like what we could call the diaspora, like there's cultures in Africa that have what we would call rap over here, and they've been doing it much longer than anything that we could point to and say that's rap over here. So it's like you could learn how to read music. You could learn what timing is. You could get rhythm down. You could practice people's different flows because they allow you to interact with the music in a different way. Kind of like putting on and taking out characters or putting on the persona of people who rap in a West Coast style as opposed to like a New York style or like an Atlanta style, because all of those give you facets of what the music is like. I guess in acting, I'm like I would relate that to like method acting versus and I might be mixing terms because I'm still learning. So like method acting versus like improv acting, or like where you're doing a commercial and like you're not necessarily you're yourself in the commercial, but you're still promoting the product. Like the the idea of like picking up skills that build into your overall framework as an actor. Like I learned how to sing and dance because I want to be able to perform on stage. Those aren't necessarily acting by themselves, or they can build into acting. I learned how to project because that allows people to hear me, and it builds into me being a more dynamic actor. Like
let me tell you where I learned to project.
Yeah.
When I worked at a hot dog and ice cream restaurant, I took so many classes I could not figure out how to project. When I was at this job, it would get very busy, and I had to keep calling, hey, we're at two all the way, hey, that forced me to learn how to project in a different way. I guess it goes back to like I don't exist in a vacuum. There's everything in life helps me with my art.
Literally.
So I think a lot of skills I learned from acting, or like that help for acting, I just learn in life and I utilize. Like I think something that I'm learning now, like commercial acting is interesting because it's not there has to be a sense of realism, but like a sense of like, oh wow, I'm not happy to say
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's like you said, you're you, but you're not you. Like
Right.
so that is something that I'm still trying to learn, and maybe I'll have another job that helps me figure that one out. A customer service job or something. I don't know. Um, but yeah, I think there's just so many things to learn from life that can help you as an artist, and I think that's what art is taking life and expressing yourself through it. Telling telling truth.
Yeah. No, that's I like that. Expressing yourself through it.
And what's funny too, because I took singing for the actor, and they tell you, oh, breathe from your diaphragm,
Mm-hmm.
breathe, can't figure out how to breathe. But I started doing yoga with my sister, and in the yoga, they're talking about, oh, breathe through your stomach, or just something they had said. I was like, now I get it. Now I get it. It wasn't. I took this class 3 times. I've taken voice for the actor. Like I couldn't figure out how to get my breath down there. But it's like other things you do in life. I'm like, now I understand this thing that's supposed to help me with my art by just doing other things in life.
Right. Right. That's like a there's this guy on YouTube, Joseph Rodriguez. He does like a lot of like self help and like just power of thinking and stuff like that. I mean, it's much. My apologies if I offend anybody, but it's much more than that. But that's like kind of where I found his work, and he talks about a lot of repetition of the same information from like different sources. So like you go take a class 3 times and it might not stick that time, but you start doing yoga with your sister, and then the same concept shows up, but because you've had some form of repetition of it, it makes sense there.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I think that's interesting because I've had a lot of jobs where they fed into what I wanted to do with like music or overall in my life, but it wasn't what I went there for. Like I didn't go there for music or for like the idea of it. So to your point about expressing through life, like I feel like art imitating life or life imitating art, like I and maybe this is a bad opinion, but I think like life is like art. Like I don't know what kind of art. I don't. It's definitely like a multi-genre and possibly definitely not the same for
It's like
everybody.
that movie Boyhood. Have you seen that?
No, what is that like?
It's a movie where the director followed. It took them 10 years to film it because they followed the boy through 10 years of his life, and they just kept recording him like every few years. So his growing up was the art of the movie,
No.
and watching him grow, like every time he came on, like how he as the actor was different than like last time. That, and I guess they shaped the movie around like who he became that year. So yeah, I guess his life was the art. Watching him grow.
Right. No, that's like super meta actually, because like I think about like even just like concepts like talking about like self therapy, right? Like and talking about the idea of like even being able to look at something that like was hard for me to like even when I come back to it or like if I'm in the moment and I'm able to get something from it, like that's so much different from who I was before because before it would just be like denial, like just deny it, deny it, deny it. But to even be able to like it's like being able to observe yourself from third person, like, oh yeah, I used to like deny a lot, but like now I kind of like I might still deny a bit, but like it's like less than before, and like now it's like less than before, like which is what feels like like it's increments of becoming a different person, incrementally becoming something different to the point where you have like a comparison of like this is what point A was like, and now point B is over here. This is not necessarily a segue into that, but when you're writing, do you think of a point A and B, or is it more so like there's this concept that I want to flesh out, and the point A and B sort of like appear within that fleshing out?
I think it depends. Um, I think sometimes when I'm writing something, I'm like, oh, I want this to happen, and I'm trying to figure out how to get there.
Right.
But it's most of myself. It's mostly me asking myself questions like, why would that happen? Like, how do we, you know? But sometimes it's like, oh, I know in my mind, oh, I want to get here, but then when I'm writing the story, it goes somewhere else, and I have to let the story go the way it wants to go. Hey, I'm
Yeah.
just writing it down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you can have like idea. At least for me, I know a lot of people write storyboards and stuff. I don't usually.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm ready.
One day. One day.
No, it's hard. It's definitely hard because I can only write as much as I've thought, and it's like if I haven't figured it out, it's like. But you know, when I was into playwriting, we did because the hardest part about writing is finishing. So something we had done in class was like every week we had to write a new scene.
Yeah.
Which I think was really helpful, and it also took my story in a way that I didn't expect. I was like, oh, what's going on now? You know,
Right.
I'm finding out at the same time as everyone else. But
The inspiration.
I think if you push yourself to do it, something will come, something that you don't expect. And I think, at least for me, for playwriting, it's like I can't necessarily go, okay, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, because that's not one. It makes my story really rigid. It doesn't give me room to like explore. But also, it's like I have to follow what the characters are doing, and I can't, I'm like, what would they do next? Oh, okay, why would they do that? Okay, why? Oh, okay, so how did we get here? And it becomes a whole story. So yeah, I actually wrote this film that I just finished called Sugar, and I wrote it in playwriting class.
Yeah.
And it was she gave us, it was this challenge we had to do, which I think is it's so interesting, the things that come out when we're challenging ourselves.
Yeah.
But it's like she gave us like 10 parameters of what to write as, and she's like, one of them, it has to be like a cyclical. You have to incorporate like I think like 5 things out of like 10 things she says. So one of them was like a cyclical kind of story, like something happens over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was a costume piece that's unique. And then I don't even remember. There's a few other things, I cannot remember what they were, but it was you had to use these parameters, and you have to write a story using several of these. And I was like, how am I going to do that? And then I did it. I just had to keep writing it. I was like, okay, it's cyclical. How am I going to make it cyclical? Why is it cyclical? And then that helped me establish what the conflict was, and that like the whole it's cyclical because she's forgetting yesterday. Oh, it's cyclical because she's like reliving the same day over and over. Why is she reliving the same day over and over? And that just helped the story be what it is. And it's interesting how when you limit yourself, you can the opposite of limit yourself.
Right. Right. No, I think that's going back to being intentional, because like you can have like I think, to the same way that everyone's like creative, I think that everyone has like a limitless amount of ideas. I think really like you really could just come up with something every day, every second, really, if you wanted to. But like actually putting energy into focusing on even one of those ideas could be a lot. Like for some people, they might be like, depending on what the idea is and like how they feel about it, like, oh yeah, I write movies like nothing. I just breathe through them. I write 10 songs in a day. Like whatever. Like, but then for other people, they're like, it takes me hours just to get into a space to even want to focus on one of those things.
Yeah.
But in those moments, like kind of going back to like the self-doubt, that might stop you, like, because you're like, oh, it's not coming, or like, I can't feel anything right now, so like it's useless, nothing is happening if I have one, like, you know what I mean?
I think it goes back to you saying like commodifying it. I think that can really get in the way, like it could create self-doubt, but it also can get in the way of just like your creativity, because it's so much easier to like write when you're doing it for fun versus like, oh my god, I'm trying to like do this great thing, like I'm trying to be this, because then it's like there's so much pressure on yourself. It's not fun anymore. It's like, why am I doing this? But if you're like, I just feel like doing it, it's so much fun. And like kind of like tennis we were talking about earlier, because I was like, oh, I like it when I like it. It's like when it becomes a thing, I'm like, I fucking hate this thing. But when it's like, oh, I just wanna play, that's what makes it fun. It's like, I'm just trying to have fun. I'm just trying to have a good time. When it becomes like, oh, if I lose, I'm a failure. Wow, I don't like playing anymore.
Fair.
You know?
Fair.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? No, that's literally like I love skating and like I'm always like I'm gonna make like skate content. I'm gonna make like downhill videos, and then I get like into it for a second, and eventually like I probably will at some point. But I'm like I like just skating though when like nobody's watching me, or like even I'm just out with friends and I'm like on a hill and like we're going 15 miles an hour and like you just get to the end of it and there's like this there's this rush, but like there's like this freedom of just like I don't even know like necessarily how to describe it, but it just feels like I left everything that was holding me back in that moment on the hill. Like it feels like I got to the bottom of the hill and like kind of like in the movie that you were just talking about, like I'm a different person. Like at the that was like point A and like the bottom of the hill is point B and like something in between point A and point B I like changed. And like every time that like I even just like shout out Lupe Fiasco, but I just like kick. You know what I mean? Like I just like I feel like something changes and it's like it's interesting, but then when I want to make it about oh I'm going to make money off of this thing or like even like with this podcast like I like the idea of like commodifying this. I like the idea of like being able to make money from it, but I also was just like I really want to talk about ideas that I seem to have a lot or things that like having the experience of like going to a job and it somehow training or allowing you to unlock some kind of skill that you want to put back into your art because the art I really like that you said that the art for the sake of the art like the art I like music because I like music. Like if I like the cliche of it, which I agree with. If I never made money off of it, cool. Like I'd still do music. Like knowing that I can make money off of it sometimes will like get me in my head because then I'm like, oh, I should be making millions of dollars. I should be figuring out how to like every single way to squeeze this song. But like when I was making the song, I wasn't thinking about like any of that. I was just like, yo, this song feels really good. I might have even like cried or like got really happy or like really excited or like wanted to show it to someone. And then I felt like to be corny, I felt like really whole like after it. I was like, oh, like that's wow, that was me, like that was there. But no, to your point, I feel like the if you can limit yourself and focus on an idea, if you can be intentional about what it is that you're wanting to feel, even if you don't necessarily know how you're going to get there in the moment, like how would I make a cyclical event, you're constantly thinking on it and you're like putting energy towards it and kind of like in the same way that we talk to ourselves like your brain comes up with thoughts like hey you could try that and you're like I could try that I could try that brain I could try that be like but if you're like the self-doubt can kind of block that or like the idea that you have to focus on which you can if it some people like multitask and they're completely fine like I think that's also a wonderful skill but you have so many other things going on that you're wanting to like at the same time bring to some sort of like completion you're like oh I can't get there like from this thing and then you miss the point that if you had just limited yourself and then focused on that you could have then gone wide and then it might incorporate the other ideas or then you might get an idea for like something else like this whole the whole podcast thing like I've been wanting to do it for like 4 or 5 not even the podcast the whole talking about freestyling I've been wanting to do for like 4 or 5 years like in the classes and stuff and like I was like oh yeah I'm gonna do it I'm gonna do it I'm gonna do it and like 4 years goes by and I'm like I'm gonna do it I'm gonna do it like I'm gonna do it and I started doing these random plane videos on Instagram like I just like started because the convention center is right next to the Hartsfield Jackson International Airport so there's like literally like planes in every single direction flying like all the time like you just point somewhere and there's probably some sort of aircraft in the sky and I was like oh I'm just gonna put like really really bad puns on all of these like plane videos because I do that all the time in real life and like it's painful for a lot of people but I realized like the same thing like I'm going to commodify that like I'm okay with saying that but I also just like telling really bad puns like there's no incentive for it it's just something that like gets me through the day it makes me feel good it makes me like I will laugh telling myself a terrible pun and then from that idea I started putting the plane videos on Instagram and I was like yo I could do these every day on YouTube like I could just like film a plane terrible pun whatever and then from that I was like I went to a class one day and we had a really great class it was like at the school Kendesi in Atlanta it's like a charter system of schools and I accidentally pocketed a marker I'm going to bring it back I swear I actually going to be there this Friday so I'm going to put it back on the board But I pocketed
Check.
this marker. It's a blue Expo. If I'm lying, you can stab me. Just don't make it hurt, please. I'm so. But
drastic for a marker.
you don't know what people go through out here. Like teachers are so nice actually. Like so many people have like donated equipment. I'm like, you sure you don't want me to like pay you back or like get you something? No, no. Thank you for being here. I'm like, thank you for being here. But it really is like community once again. Like there is really a strong community in like teaching and people who want to see you could say youth, but also just people in general, like teachers in general who want to see people do well. Like there is a real community in that, I think. And I pocketed that marker and I like ended up with it at home. I was looking at it and I was like, because I was in the idea, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get like a blackboard, like a little mini like erase board, so I can like start like showing concepts and stuff. And now I realized that was like analysis paralysis. Like it was just me like I'm not going to limit myself. I'm going to think about all these ideas of what I want, but if I never start the thing, so then as I'm like looking at this market, I'm like fuck it, I'm just gonna fucking like it's like 12 in the morning. I start editing the video at like 1 in the morning after I finish it, and then I put it up, and I felt like this release of just like oh I got to the idea, I got to what it was that I wanted to get to, and it was me focusing on it and like spending some time with it, and it I don't know, like it inspired me to just like keep doing it. Like so then we ended up with like this whole like interview series because I was like, oh like I would want to talk to other people about like how they get to because like to your point about improv and like conversation, like I'm just telling you what's in my head. I've learned the words already. I've learned like the concepts. I've learned how to like present the ideas that I'm wanting to get across. And like sometimes I can still get better at that. I can still get better in like shaping my questions or my ideas in a way where they come across like clear, like where someone can immediately understand what it is that I'm trying to say. But I've also gotten to a point where I can just express concepts freely. I can improv without any like prior thought because I've practiced English and conversation and whatever else. And also, you just in the world going out, if you talk to people, you just naturally end up with that.
Yeah.
So no, like that the focusing on it, the actual like limiting of yourself can actually be like because that all spawned from playing videos on YouTube that I just been doing or playing videos on Instagram, and I've been posting on Instagram prior to that in the stories every day for like 4 or 5 months. And that was just something also I just really enjoyed, like Instagram stories for whatever reason. But like one thing led to another kind of thing, and it was me focusing on Instagram stories that led to the plane videos, that led to the YouTube thing, that led to me like finally getting confident enough to do the individual like episodes to being like, oh, an interview series talking to people about their creative processes or how like they pull things would be like cool, like I should just do that. And then even that I was like, no, I'm not gonna do interviews because like what if like the question's really bad or like what if like I don't like what if like it's not good? And then I thought about it and I was like, well, when you started rapping, it wasn't good. Like when you started like, and that's like the not the commodity of or commodifying of, but like the comparison of like if I rap and it makes me feel good, is it not already good? Like if I just do the thing and I start, is it not already good? Like if I'm not Denzel Washington, I'll never be Denzel Washington. Like you're fine, but like I like BB too. Like you know what I mean? Like but it's like if I never start doing the thing, then how do I even get to just the enjoyment of it? How do I even get to the realizing of, oh, actually, like how you were saying about speech and debate? Speech and debate led you to being like, oh, I actually enjoy theater. But like, if you had never done speech and debate, or at least gotten yourself invested enough into it, then that moment might not have, or it still might have happened, but it wouldn't have come at the time that it did.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It is really interesting. I think about sometimes like little decisions you make such a big impact on like just make such a big difference.
Yeah.
It's so random.
It is. It is literally like and probably like I maybe think of like a few more questions, but there are so many like, and I told John the story, but the way I got that apprenticeship at Aurora, right? It was a colleague of mine in the freestyle community, the soul food cipher community where we do the freestyle rap. He was like, hey, the current director of education is looking for someone to fill out this and he actually told me that I was going to be teaching. So I'm thinking I'm about to go teach freestyle to people like actors, and I'm like, oh, I'm in like relating improv to it. I'm like, oh, they'll get it because improv and stuff. And then it turns out to be an apprenticeship, and then I end up in the apprenticeship that way, like literally because of that. And I have all these moments. Like I've actually been doing acting since like my parents put me in like workshops and stuff and like all that, like they were like very into the idea, and then like things changed, funds changed, like family changed, and that kind of just like disappeared for a little bit. But I remembered in that moment, oh yeah, I really wanted to be an actor. Like I am an actor. Like I've always been really interested in that. But then it took me like moments getting back like into like the idea of like me being an actor and into the idea of joining it. But it was so random because I had just I've been working a landscaping job. My wife and I just moved to Tucker. Um, and it was just like to make ends meet. She was working an admin job from home at the time, and that was like all I could find at the moment. And I get fired from this job. I have like a disagreement with my supervisor. I love you. I don't know what happened, but I love you. Like, and I literally after I get back home, I fall asleep on the desk. Like our office and our room is in the like we just moved in, so our office and our workspace and our creative space is all the same room at one point. And I'm like, I don't care what it is. I just want to do a job in like art, and I'll be like the happiest person ever. And then I wake up to that message from my colleague, and like literally as I'm waking up, like he's like, yeah, do you want to like? I'm like, that's so random, but there was no way I could have planned that. Like I didn't even know the theater existed. You feel me? So like so many moments in my life like that.
Oh yeah, let me tell you how I started writing. I mean, I guess I've always written, like I always write, you know.
Yeah.
But when I was in college, I don't really remember the specifics around it, but something about like, so there's something called like workshop where, um, every Monday at 4 p.m. like it was students would produce, I mean they would direct and like act in these like 10-minute plays. And one day I watched it and I was really mad because of course, you know, everywhere you go there's like a lack of diversity, or like whenever there are black people, it's like black trauma, or it's like I don't know, it was just I was just really, I don't remember what specifically happened, but I was so fucking mad. I don't remember if it was workshop or if it was a play. I mean yeah, like a play my school had put on. But also, you know, my whole theater faculty was white, and they didn't really cast black actors unless they literally lynched someone on stage one time. That was intense. No trigger warning. But so something had happened where I had seen something, and I got home and I was so fucking mad that I wrote a play about it, and then I put it up, and then everyone was like, "Why the fuck did you put this up?" Because I literally in the play I had the actor go, "All of you suck. I'm talking about all of you." So when I'm mad, I don't give a fuck. Like,
right.
And then after that, I like had written another play about like something else that had annoyed me in like my theater school, and then um, yeah, from there I was like, wow, it's actually kind of cool writing about things that I like feel about the world. I don't know, like writing in my own perspective. I thought was cool, but yeah, that's how I started. Just pissed me off so bad. I was like, I gotta write about this, and I just went home and I wrote the whole play. Yeah, it's funny.
No, that is funny. Like the idea of like putting things in your own perspective. Do you? I mean, I guess that'd be the same thing with like, and I feel like you've already actually, because I asked you this and you answered it. When you're acting, you're looking from the perspective of yourself as first the person to look, to find the humanity in the character, and then you become the character enough to look at the world from the perspective of the character. But as you said, it's like, and forgive me if I'm getting anything wrong, it's like more so that you're trying on this person within the shows because you're not this person, you don't live this person day to day. When you're doing that, do you find that you take perspective of the character back with you as after you leave that character, after you take them off, or is it just like you okay, I'm no longer the character of myself. Now I'm myself looking at the play, and now I've left the play. Like the play's not even happening anymore, kind of thing.
I think it definitely gives me perspective, depending on what it is. I think it can, because I think you have to do research into some capacity to understand why, like with the world they live in and why they feel the way they feel. And I think it definitely does give you perspective. I'm like, man, like this is something I didn't know. Like this experience they're experiencing. Like I never heard of Nicodemus, Kansas. I never knew that was a thing until I had to like look it up for the show, and I was like, wow, And I think it definitely, I think you can empathize with almost every character in a show. Like, okay, yeah, I can. And honestly, it makes me think of Speech and Debate in the sense that like I'm not. I mean, I don't know if they did it the same at your school, but like for PF debate,
Mm-hmm.
you had to write both um, AF and neg cases, and they decided right then and there which one you're doing. Right. So you have to learn how to argue both sides. You have to be passionate about both sides, and I think that's kind of the same way. It's like you have to find truth in every character, even if like you have to agree with it to some capacity. You have to find something in it that you can relate to, you can agree with. And I think when you leave, you can be like, wow, that's definitely like I can see their perspective and I understand why they're feeling the way that they feel.
Right. When you're writing and you're building the world, does it? Do you spend time with uh, the multi perspectives of the characters? Like, do you go to this character, spend time with their perspective, and then from your writing process, do you think, well, why would they do that, or why would they say that? And then do you then, after having that framework built out, move to the next character? And you're like, and how would they fit in relation to them, or is it like?
It's just more so how the story progresses, I guess. Like, because usually stories, at least things that I write, usually just follow one person.
Mm-hmm.
So I think about why would that person like it more so follows the person. So other people come along the way.
Right.
Yeah, and I guess I go, okay, so what would they say to this or how would they react to this? But I don't sit down like character by character. I just kind of write the story and then as the characters pop up, they pop up.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Like it's like I don't know if that's like everyone's style of writing, but like all of the tertiary and secondary characters are really aspects of like the main character in some way, shape, or form. So
they add to the story the way being told.
Right, because you're not maybe not everyone's there for the main character, but what's bringing you into the world, the person that you're following normally is the main character.
Yeah.
And then in that you kind of see how everyone relates to them or builds out their overall world or their perspective of the world.
Mm.
They did the lynching on stage. Like
they literally lynched this man on stage. They put a noose around his neck.
Why?
They called him racial slurs.
What play was this? Was this even in a play? Like
Proud to Present.
Stop.
It's called Proud to Present. It's about like these four scholars. It's a black woman, a white woman, a black man, a white man. No, there's two white men. But they're looking back at letters from this one. I don't remember what country it was, but this country in Africa that had like a genocide pretty much.
Yeah.
And they were reading letters trying to understand like the history of it. But all the letters were from like Germans, but they would like reenact things. It just got to a really weird place. Like I don't know. I don't know how we got there. But it was a whole thing where we're like, hey, can you guys give us a trigger warning? They're like, we don't want to spoil it. What the fuck kind of an answer is that? Like, what do you mean? They're like, oh, well, the people that we need to see it aren't going to come see it. Like, because if we put a spoiler that there's racism, then racists aren't going to want to see it. I'm like, do you think racists are taking away the same thing from it? That all they're going to be is like, yeah, hell yeah, lynch you. That's what they're going to take.
That is a wild statement. Racists are not going to want to see it.
Right? I'm like, oh, so traumatize everybody else.
Traumatize everyone.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
No. No. So as you're going home, and that sparks, and that's the first time that you. So to your point, you said that you've always been writing before that.
Yeah.
But that's the first time that you write a play.
Yeah.
And that. So you were talking about your feeling, like being really pissed. So obviously the feeling is there. When you finished it and you put it up, like what was the feeling? Like where did you land, like on the spectrum? Like
well, look, my anger can last an eternity. So
fair.
So it wasn't like I wrote it and then I was like, because I had to wait another semester before I could submit it. And then I had to find a director, and then we had to rehearse. So there was a lot of steps along the way. But the whole time I'm like, yeah, tell him, you know. And I think once it went up, it's like, yeah, this is how I feel. And now y'all have to listen to how I feel. I'm never shy about saying what the fuck I feel.
Right.
But y'all want to act like you can't hear me. Now you can't do that because you all have to watch. So I'm like, oh, this is great. And the response was interesting because a lot of people, wow, so good because they want to be vindicated. Um, Even though there's a line in it, I'm like, I'm talking about everyone in the room, every one of you, it was something like that. But no, everyone wants to feel vindicated. They want to, but I don't know that they want to change. So the response is really interesting, and I don't know. I don't think I'm ever afraid of like backlash or anything because I'm like, if you're going to punish me for saying how I feel, like that's a you problem. I'm maybe you should make it so I don't feel this way. Maybe you should fix the problem I'm talking about. And if your response to me calling out a problem is punishing me, it's like you didn't give a fuck about the problem. So that was not something I could avoid anyway, if that makes sense. Like
Right.
I would have still had to face this problem anyway. So I don't know. It was interesting because I felt a little validated because people were like, yeah, that was great. But also it was interesting seeing people try to vindicate themselves. But it was a sense of relief in a way. Like it was a relief and a release.
Yeah. So you would say, as an actor, and only during auditions, you might possibly get into your head about how you're being perceived. But as a writer, that
I
how you're
don't care.
that's
I said what I
interesting.
said. I don't care.
That's interesting. That's interesting. The duality of that, like,
I write it. I'm like, this is a masterpiece. I don't care. I
right.
don't care what you said. This is great.
So when you're acting versus writing, like in your and yeah, no, actually still good. Okay. Like also if you're like, yo, I want to end this interview, like feel free to say so. Like feel free to say so.
Well, I did like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
And good night. Get out of here. Acting versus writing, like do you, and I guess that makes sense for like any art form, but when you're writing, the thoughts that are on your mind as an actor, none of those thoughts are present, like when you're writing. Even if you're writing something that you yourself may be acting later. Like as a writer, you're inhabiting a different mental space, a different creative space.
Oh yeah.
Which makes sense anyway, but
which is interesting. Okay, so for Sugar, the thing that I wrote,
right.
Initially, I was going to put it up as a play at my school, so we were casting it, but then, COVID happened, shut everything down, blah, 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 all these things happened. I ended up wanting to film it. I filmed it with my friend from college, and I was like, I'm going to be the lead, because I know this bitch, I'm going to be her. So approaching it as an actor was very interesting, because I'm like, this is something that I wrote, but I had so many questions. Like, there's so many things I didn't know about her, and there was, like, a lot of backstory I had to create from her that I didn't create as the writer. Because it's really interesting because it's like, oh, as the writer, you would think like, oh, I made the whole story. But there was so much more. There's so much more to acting. Like when you're a character, there's just so much more that's like I need to know. Like I need to have answers to. Yeah, there was just a lot of story I didn't know that I had to figure out. Whereas the writer, it's like, yeah, I'm creating the space in which this happens. But as an actor, you have to create the entire character, like their whole life from birth to now, everything they like, they dislike. There's just a lot more to it. So with writing, it's just like I'm telling this story as this happens right now. But as an actor, it's like I'm telling the character's life through this. Like this is just a moment you're seeing in the character's life. Versus when you're writing it, you're like, this moment is the story. This moment is what I'm telling you. As an actor, you're like, this is just the moment you're seeing, but I'm alive every other time.
Right. Right. No, I think about that in shows all the time. Like, or even like books. Like, there's a dialogue or a moment between, like how you were talking about Denzel Washington earlier, and like Married, like Once. You know what I mean? Like the idea that like there was a whole story there. Like there was a backstory, there was a life, there was both of their lives before they met.
Yeah.
But all you're getting is once. Like, and from that you're able to like infer, like go to that place. And I think that's powerful as a writer to be able to like create that moment, but also as you said, powerful as an actor to be able to embody it and then give it that time period, that length of like actual like lived inness, can then be expressed in like a look or an emotion or like that's interesting. I think that's the last question, but if I think of any other ones, I'm probably gonna like just send them to y'all, cause like I'm like I want to like make like a bunch of stuff with this. But do you have any goals for like just in general or things that you would like to achieve? like with your either your acting, your writing, and your general day to day life. Also, like you talked about math, and you also were playing chess earlier. Like even stuff like that. Like you have goals like for that as well.
Man, I don't really set goals. I really should, but I don't.
I think everybody's different.
Yeah, but you know, like I said, I've been doing yoga lately, which is something that's cool. I've been very against it my whole life, but I've been doing it.
Yeah. Well, how so? Or like why?
Because I'm very inflexible, and I've done it once. I'm like, that's terrible. I'm doing it again. But I'm like, no, you try it. I like, opening my mind to it, and it's surprisingly been okay. Like, I think it's been helpful. Like, it hasn't been as bad as I thought or whatever. It's kind of cool. Um, I don't know. I guess I don't like to set like resolutions,
Mm-hmm.
but I think every year or like instead of goals, I just try to improve myself a little bit in any way that I can because I feel like a lot of times when people set a resolution, it's like that's easy for me to give up on. Like it's like, oh, I'm gonna go to the gym every day. Like that's easy for me to give up on. But if it's like, I'm I went to the gym once this week. That's better than I was before. Hey,
Literally.
if I can like improve in what I do, so I think okay, now I'm doing yoga. That's something that I've improved on. Or like, oh, I'm gonna like try to finish this script I'm writing. That's script I didn't have finished. Yeah, I guess just moving forward.
Yeah.
Is my goal. Just moving forward.
No, I think that's like really the ultimate goal. To your point, like building like habits. Like I'll be like, oh yeah, I want to build all these habits, and I'm gonna do it in like a month, and then I might not in a month do any of those things, but like the next month comes up, and I'm like, oh, I'll take like a day, and I'll do like an hour of like practicing like being a DJ or something, and then I get really into it for a while, it might go away, something else might take its place, but it will remind me that I did it. Like it will remind me like, oh, I did actually take a step. Like I did actually get like, then I might like get on a whole kick on it, or like it's another month where I actually do like every day, and then like for a while. But it's like just the I like that, just the idea of like I became better than I was the other day, or even in the moment of like actually attempting or doing the thing that I said I wanted to do, I did that, and then was Boyhood the movie that you were talking about? I'm different from who I was. Like it's an incremental change, but it's enough to actually cause a different scene. Like it's a different moment to live in.
Enough steps and you're walking.
Yeah. Quotes and shirts. Do you want to like shout out any of your social media or anything that you want people to find you on, or any projects? Shout out Sugar. Anything that you would like people to go and look at or find, and also I'll put the links in the description.
You can follow my Instagram, Jazz or Jazzy, Jazz JAZZ.OR.JAZZY.
Fair. I'm Rondo Owens. This has been Jasmine. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and see you next time.
Bye.
.542s and a 46. What does that mean? Who cares? It's lit. 542s and a 46. What does that mean? Who cares? It's lit. 542s and a 46. What does that mean? Who cares? It's lit. 542s and 246. Hey, what does that mean? Nobody cares. It's lit for 542s and 246. Hey, what does that mean? Nobody cares. It's lit. 542s, 246. What does that mean? Nobody cares. 42, 42, 42, 246, 525. 5, 2, 4, 5, 2, 2, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 2, 2, 5, 2, 2, 5, 2, 2, 5, 5, 5, 2, 2, 5, 2, 2, 5, 2, 2, 5, 2, 5, 4, 6,